A lot of times, Christians often wonder about marriage and faith and, scripture. Some will ask, can a Christian marry an unbeliever? And others will ask if it's acceptable under, certain circumstances. So the real question we need to ask ourselves is, what does the Bible actually say regarding these things? And it's important that we experience and explore, God's instructions and his guidance. Now, the first thing to realize is that God's ideal is unity in faith in regards to two people. Scripture tends to emphasize that marriage is meant to be a union between two people who share faith in God. Now, when we look at 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14, it says in verse 14, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? So this scripture alone, makes it clear whether it regards to friendship or, marriage. It's important to associate with people that share the light with you, that, that are yoked with you, not people that are unequally yoked. So what this means is that marriage only works best when both partners share the faith. Now, unequal faith, there'll be spiritual and relational tension. And God's design, for us as believers is to grow in him together. And another thing about marriage too is that marriage reflects Christ's relationship with the church. It's not some social contract. Here in the Western world, marriage is seen as transactional or a contract, but it's spiritual. In Ephesians 5:31-32, a man is instructed to leave his mother and father to become united to a woman, and together they become one flesh. And how we know is that when we look at the book of Genesis, especially when God, created Adam, he put him asleep and he took his rib. And with that rib, he created Eve. So therefore, they're one flesh. You see, so, this is a profound mystery, but that's exactly what happened. In Christian marriage mirrors Christ's relationship with the church, as I've just mentioned. Faith is a huge critical component, it's a huge element. Now, obviously, there are also biblical expectations and wisdom. While God calls Christians to marry within faith, Scripture does provide, guidance on certain situations, which can be found in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 12-14. All right, in verse 12, it talks about, but to the rest, I, not the Lord, say, if any brother has a wife who does not believe, and she's willing to live with him, let him not divorce her. And a woman who has a husband who does not believe, if he is willing to live with her, let her not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Otherwise, your children will be unclean, but now they are holy. So in regards to this, there are scenarios where, one spouse is a believer and the other person is an unbeliever. Normally that happens when, an individual decides to convert the faith. Those are the particular scenarios. And it's okay to stay married to that person as long as they're okay with it. I've met people where the wife was a Christian and the husband was a Muslim. But the lady, she ended up, if I remember correctly, she converted to Christianity and the husband was okay with it, So those are some examples of those scenarios. So marriage to an unbeliever is not ideal, but God gives wisdom in regards to that of mixed faith, scenarios. And the believer can have a positive spiritual influence. God's grace provides guidance, even when certain circumstances may arise. So can a Christian marry an unbeliever? Well, it's important to realize that God's ideal is unity in faith. So you must be equally yoked with the person you're marrying, and it must reflect Christ's relationship with the church. Now, as I've mentioned, the Bible has acknowledged certain complex scenarios, but its guidance points to shared belief as the foundation for a strong, spiritual, healthy marriage. It's all about the foundation. If the foundation is not there, then it is yet to fail. It will crumble. Now, we need to understand God's design and This will help Christians in regards to making choices that honor him without judgment or compromise. Thank you, and bye-bye for now.